Mayor Marlowe has a business engagement where he's representing the city, I think with the school board, and indicates that he'll be running late. Expresses his apologies for not being here. Just kind of give you an overview on this. The whole driving force behind developing the Newberry 101 curriculum is that we in government, those of us that work as our careers in government, recognize that even a small city business is much more complex than the average resident would envision, and that we recognize that the average resident is experts at what they do, but maybe not experts at what the rest of us do. So newly elected officials come in and they become the board that oversees our government operations, and we want to try to get you up to speed as quickly as possible, and to know as many of the things, at least from an overview perspective, as you can. And so that was the genesis of Newberry 101. This is fairly comprehensive. I believe there are 97 slides. So even if we were able to get them at 1 minute per slide, we'd be hurting 97 minutes later. And I don't think we can do a minute a slide. So we're going to try to hit the high points and keep it fun. This is as informal as it ever gets. Please feel free to stop, ask questions, ask us to expound, do this. This is the universal speed up, I got this, you're boring me to death symbol. We will, okay, he's doing it already. We'll speed up. We'll move on through some points that you may be more familiar with. It's also a trial run for all of us to speak in front of the public and hone our presentation skills, so we use it for that. But want to keep it low-key and informal enough that, and hopefully it's very informative for you, and that we keep the pace going so that we don't bore you to death. I didn't bring the clicker up. Are you going to click for me, Amy? Because I'm starting off in the format. Okay, I'll just move up to the dais. Format will be that each of the department heads will stand up and present kind of an overview of their department. So I'll take the lead and just get city administration, and I guess I'll start off with just an official welcome. Commissioner Hersom, glad you could join us. Newberry 101, so slide number 1, that's me, is welcome to the team. Offer you some quick facts about Newberry, just kind of an overview. Many of them you're probably familiar with, but we have a population pushing 6,000. Geographically, we're one of the largest cities in the state of Florida, top 20 at 55 square miles, and the majority of that is zoned in ag. Have an annual budget of $17 million, which again speaks to that. It's a pretty complex organization. We have 86 employees, 76 of them are full-time, the rest are part-time employees, and we are a full-service city. We offer that following suite, or that bulleted suite of service for our residents, which sets us apart from a lot of cities our size with the level of service offering that we provide. And we offer a commissioner manager form of government. I don't know if you've had any background in the different forms of government. There's strong mayor, commissioner mayor. Not too long ago, kind of in the recent past, 20 years ago, Newberry had a different form. There was no manager, and each commissioner oversaw a particular department. So I think it was in 2005 that we transitioned away from that. 95 or 2005? Who knows? We debated. Okay, went back and forth for a while. So those are some quick facts. Here's a quick org chart. All of our org chart starts to show the bosses at the top, which are the citizens of Newberry are our bosses, then our elected officials, and then your 3 charter positions, which are city attorney, city manager, and city clerk. Operationally, the major operating departments report to the city manager. Speaking of the city manager, we're going to speak about that area first. Here's the org chart. Oop, too fast. Org chart for the administrative or the city manager's department. We have Amy, who is, you've probably already met. She's kind of the do-all for around here. She's the glue that keeps all of this together. And then we have 5 departments directly reporting. We have 6 department heads. Deborah in Human Resource works with Dallas in Finance and Administration. So per the charter, just kind of go through the duties and responsibilities of the city manager. City manager is a charter position, along with the mayor, city clerk, and city attorney. Is charged with being the administrative and executive head of operations. I report directly to and under the supervision of you and our city commission. And my job is to ensure that the laws, ordinances, and policies are enforced, which is somewhat unique and sometimes puts us in a little bit of a political pickle. We're not in a position of utilizing discretion. We are charged with carrying out policies, even if our policies aren't current, and we all know that we should amend our policies or our regulations, in which case we come back before the commission and say, we recommend that you amend these ordinances, and we will then carry them out in the way that they're newly amended. We implement programs, plans, and projects. We attend all meetings, but fortunately for me, I never get to vote. Staff doesn't vote on things. We typically make a recommendation, but not always. Our charge is to recommend measures to you guys that we deem to be in the best interest of the city, and we are responsible for all personnel, hiring, firing, separation, the current politically correct term for that. And we keep the city commission apprised of financial conditions. We prepare the annual budget. We'll go through, which you'll see that's a fun process. That is a 3-month long process where we'll have a series of workshops. When the commission gets engaged, it is a 9-month process. We start, it seems like it's a year-long process, like it's a continuous process, but staff's working on it for 9 months. The commission gets really involved. I said 3 months. It's really, we start workshops with the commission in June, so it's probably 4 months worth of commission time. Series of workshops that culminate in consideration of a budget in September. So the budget is adopted by resolution, but it's adopted by 2 readings of resolution at our first and second meeting in September. Did I get that right? Oh, I'm also stepping onto the toes of some other areas, so I'll try not to do that. We administer contracts and agreements, and we ensure that the city's competitive procurement processes are followed. So just a little bit of a laundry list of our operational priorities. We start out by saying we desire to provide an elite level of service in all operating areas. That's the goal when we get here every day. We don't want to be average. We don't want to be as good as the next community. We want to be an elite service provider. We want to listen to our residents and reduce process that in normal walks of life seems to be the #1 problem. Criticism of government is that we're so process laden that people just can't get the simple things done. And we know that we have to have a lot of process, but if we will listen to what people are trying to accomplish, we can steer them in the right direction and make it painless. We want to keep our costs for services lower than average. Realize we can't do them for free, but we feel like that if we're Publix, if we can provide you great value, you're willing to pay average or a little bit less than average and be happy for it. The areas that we've really been focusing on are wholesale power, because your wholesale power costs, our purchase cost for power is 2/3 of the power bill. So we can go around working on the cost to distribute power all day long, but we won't get a lot of bang for our buck. If we can reduce the cost for wholesale power, that's going to be a real benefit to our residents. For the last couple of years, we've been working on reducing law enforcement costs, and through direction of the commission, and we've done a terrific job there. Last year, the commission directed us to bid our solid waste contract, resulted in a 25% savings for residents. So those have been our priorities for cost reduction. We're also charged with developing a strong economic base and and economic development, we've had a real focus on our ag tech park and manufacturing. The commission has been very strong in pointing at we want to stay close to our ag roots. Commission has directed us to stay focused on public safety. We've had a big emphasis on law enforcement and fire services the past 4 years since I've been with the city. And here's a list of special projects or topics for specials. We've been very infrastructure focused, both existing assets and expansion for new. You'll see we have a water main going down State Road 26. That's expansion for new. The community has been very technology oriented, so we have a whole host of projects that we're working on to make sure that we are not only keeping up with technology, but maybe staying a little bit out in front of it. Again, very uncommon for a city of our population, and Commission has directed us to work on a lot of quality of life type programs. Some of these we've already addressed. We're working on downtown revitalization every day. We've completed a broadband opportunity study last fiscal year that we could make available, that report to you. We just got natural gas service. We got franchise agreements with 2 service providers in the area that will allow us to bring natural gas into the community. It'll save our residents a lot of money, and it'll greatly enhance our ability to pull in economic development, folks that need natural gas to make their business case viable. And I'm going to turn it over to our fire chief, Mr. Ben Buckner.
Good evening, Commissioner, and welcome. Ben Buckner, Fire Chief. Go ahead and touch base on the organizational chart of the fire department. We have a total of 13 full-time employees, including myself. We have 12 operational personnel, 1 administrative person. We have 3 lieutenants, 3 driver operators, and 6 firefighter positions. We have 1 lieutenant, 1 driver, and 2 firefighters on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're a career professional department. The personnel qualifications for the rank of lieutenant and driver operator exceed those of partner agencies such as GFR and ACFR. As the manager mentioned earlier, we try to be an elite force within the city, and this is something that was put into place some 20 years ago by Chief Jim Sewell, but we've carried it on throughout the years, and it's been beneficial to the city. For instance, our lieutenants, they're all state certified fire safety inspectors. That's a requirement before they can even sit for the test for a lieutenant position in the city of Newberry. That's almost unheard of in this area. So we're pretty proud of that. Several of our personnel, something that we instituted a couple years ago and we've been working towards fairly diligently, is working with getting additional personnel to where they can work out of class. One of the things that this does is, being a small department, your pool of employees, when people use vacation or sick time, it creates a lot of overtime, because as I mentioned, you have 4 personnel on duty every day, and that's an NFPA requirement. So one of the things that we've been able to do by having folks become higher trained than their normal classification is it helps alleviate some of the overtime. And so we've seen some real savings in that. As I said, we started about 2 years ago really working to make that a reality, and we're not where we want to be yet, but we're getting there. We've had a partnership with Alachua County Fire Rescue since 2000. We have what we call employee exchange program. We send them a firefighter EMT every day, which is part of that 4 that are on duty, and they send us a firefighter paramedic. That allows us to be advanced life support, or ALS, on our initial response, which is a benefit to everybody in the western part of the county. But that's been in place since 2000. Our ISO rating, as you've said in some of the commission meetings, we've talked about that recently. We have another ISO evaluation coming up this year. But as of the 2014 ISO rating, we were a 4 4.9. They've changed the rating a little bit. We were a 4.9. Now we're a 3.3X. And what the lower the number, the better your rating. The best you can be is a 1. Obviously, our goal is to get there. But based on the data from 2014, we were in approximately the top 6% of the fire departments that were surveyed nationally, which is a great feat for a department of our size. And that's a testament, as I mentioned a few weeks back, not only to the fire department, but we talk about team here. And if the water department doesn't do their part, we don't do our part, it doesn't benefit anybody. And so it's a team effort that makes that ISO rating work. Several years ago, the city put in a second water tower. That helped us out tremendously. But in 2014, we dropped from, and when I say drop, we got better, from a 4 to a 3. Our annual budget's about $1.2 million. We have revenues for the fire assessment of about $470,000. The contract with Alachua County for this fiscal year is $175,000. Next fiscal year it'll be $185,000. And that contract, I believe it's in its 3rd year this coming fiscal year, so it'll be up for negotiation again with the Alachua County Fire Rescue. And we'll talk a little bit in just a minute about what the contract with Alachua County actually covers.
Chief, if I can interrupt for a second.
Sure.
I want to, every time I get to talk with you guys, I always take the opportunity to thank you guys, because I think the ALS training I have personally benefited from, as I try to tell you guys or the fire department employees every time I run across you. And so I applaud Newberry for taking that on and having that available to citizens. And as a family recipient, when you guys responded to our house and saved my life, I appreciate that greatly.
Well, that's good to hear, and I'll make sure I pass that along. Brought up the ALS, I mentioned it earlier. The commission made a commitment. We're trying to move towards, as I mentioned, we have that exchange program with Alachua County that allows us to be the initial response ALS. So we have ALS on scene before the ambulance gets there. The city commission made a commitment last year through our training budget to fund somebody to go to school for that every year. You'll see as we work on budgets this year, it's in there again. We're hoping to be able to provide our own ALS service without being dependent upon somebody else. It's going to take a little time, but we're going to get there. Again, I'll pass that along, and I appreciate that. All right, some goals and areas of focus for the fire department. Some of them have been on here for a little while. Complete the fire station expansion and ambulance bay. We're about 98% complete. Biggest majority of our work at the moment is probably outside work. We do have some things inside that need to be completed, but we're getting there. Realize the placement of an ambulance within the corporate limits of Newberry. There's a document called the Fire Services Master Plan that was commissioned by Alachua County. I believe it was back in 2002 and again in 2012 or 14. Newberry is on that list to receive an ambulance. As it stands right now, according to that master plan, if they go in order of the submittal in the Fire Services Master Plan and some presentations that ACFR has given to their commission, we're next to get an ambulance, a 24-hour ambulance. There's been some change in their methodology and how their deployment is working with ambulance and fire trucks, and you probably heard about it a little bit in the news lately. But we're still bending their ear every chance we get about getting that ambulance. As I mentioned earlier, we have the upcoming ISO evaluation. That's going to be a big item that is going to take a lot of time from within our department to try and make some things happen where we can potentially get a better rating. And if we don't get a better rating, get an item that's called a hall water certification. That's typically what it's called. That's the lay term, is hall water certification. Right now, our ISO rating at 3, if you're within 1,000 feet of municipal water supply within 5 miles of a fire station, your ISO rating's a 3. If you're outside that 1,000 feet or you're outside that 5 miles, you're that 3X. What this would do is if we get the hall water certification, it'll allow everybody within the 5-mile radius of the fire department to get the 3 rating. So that's something we're gonna shoot for. We'll see how it goes. It's not super common to get it, and it's not super common to get it the first go-around, but we're gonna give it a shot. As always, we have a goal to provide the highest level of customer service through professionalism, efficiency, and with the cost effectiveness in mind, realizing the investment that the citizen and commission has made in the fire service. And my goal is always to make sure we spend that money wisely. I've said it before, and you'll hear it again as a commissioner. We all have wants. The needs always come first. The wants are the things that we can potentially do without. The needs we have to do our job and do it efficiently. You may see some wants, but there won't be many wants. There may be some wants that come along, and they may help us do our job a little bit better, but we have some needs. And the first thing I always do is I eliminate wants whenever, it's time to start cutting budgets. And, when the manager asks me to eliminate something, the wants go away. But I'm very mindful, and our department's very mindful of, the investment that the community's made in our department. We currently have an apparatus replacement program. We'd like to continue this apparatus replacement program. We have an aging fleet. We have a 1999 aerial device, aerial Quint, and we have a 2005 engine, which is our primary response unit. Fire engines are typically a 10 to 12 year lifespan. Aerial apparatus are typically 12 to 15. Next year our Quint will be 20 years old. And our engine is, right now it's at its, let's see, 05 to, it's at 13 years this year, so it's 1 year outside of its 12-year expectancy, life expectancy. This is our coverage area. This is our first response territory. The red line to the left of that map is the county line. Basically, that red line, the first set of red lines you come to, that's our response area. We cover 64 square miles. The county provides funds to respond in the unincorporated areas. That was at $175,000 that we received this year. Next fiscal year it'll be $185,000. But they reimburse us, if you will, to respond to those calls in unincorporated Alachua County that are in our first response territory. Response statistics in the data that we pulled, and it was from, I believe it was calendar year 17. We ran 933 calls. As you can see, 687 of those calls were for medical calls. We run about 70-30 on a percentage for medical, about 70% medical, about 30% all other calls. That can be attributed to quite a few things. One big one is fire prevention education and building construction and things of that nature over the years. But like most departments, majority of our calls are medical-based type calls. And any questions?
No, I just,
Okay.
again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jeremy Jones. I'm the Public Works and Utilities Director for the city. And I'll try to keep it as brief as possible so it doesn't bore you too much. I can get the right clicker to go.
I didn't do it.
I don't know what we have here, if I can get back in line. Well, I keep mashing them. Sooner or later, I'll get something to work for me.
It's to monitor.
A few pictures of our infrastructure. Here we go. This is the organizational chart for the Public Works and Utilities departments. There's 22 staff members to provide the different services, whether it's electric, water, wastewater, streets and roads, public works, solid waste, facilities and parks maintenance, mosquito control, and maintenance of the cemetery. The Utility and Public Works Administration Department is basically an internal service fund. The folks in this department, including myself, provide the oversight and assistance to all the individual disciplines in purchasing and procurement, the data entry of work orders, utility locates. We sell the cemetery lots, handle the mosquito control complaints and issues with the water, electric system, roadway complaints, and any maintenance requests associated with any of those. We coordinate the projects and the work performed by staff and outside contractors, and we assist in the preparation of regulatory compliance and reporting to the Public Service Commission, Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and other regulatory agencies. Our electric department, we're one of 34 municipally owned electric service providers in Florida. We have one major feeder, 25 miles overhead conductor, approximately 5 miles of underground conductor, approximately 1,500 utility poles, 200 transformers, and other associated electric equipment. Right now we have approximately 1,900 active electric meters. Annual budget of $4.84 million, and that's including some capital outlay as identified there, $459,000. Pictures of our staff maintaining the electric system, distribution system. Our water department, our water and wastewater department is kind of unique. We all of our personnel are split 50-50 between the two departments, and they do both disciplines. We have four production potable water wells, the 2 elevated tanks, generators associated with that, the 2 disinfection systems, approximately 2,000 active water meters, numerous hydrants, an extensive piping system from 2 to 12 inch, and we produce approximately 190 million gallons of potable water annually. Staffed by licensed operators. We have quite a few dual licensed operators, and experienced distribution personnel to maintain all of the piping networks and appurtenances associated with the system. 6 full-time positions in total that are split between water and wastewater. We do quite a bit of sampling as required by federal and state regulations and the reporting that goes with that. Annual budget of $1.86 million with capital outlay identified in there. Some pictures of our staff maintaining some of the system. In wastewater, you have the 1 treatment plant, 25 lift stations that we maintain and operate, 2 emergency generators, the disinfection, and 1 effluent disposal system. We basically dispose of our effluent on site, spray field, and we have a solids application site where we dispose of wastewater residuals. We treat and dispose of approximately 73 million gallons of wastewater annually. Once again, staffed by state licensed operators in water and wastewater. 6 full-time positions as I spoke to before. Our plant permit requires 6 hours of staffing time at the wastewater plant per day, 2 visits on the weekends, and we require a visit by a licensed operator on the water system every day. Once again, extensive sampling and reporting criteria to federal and state local agencies. Annual budget of $2.26 million with $1.22 capital outlay included.
Just a quick question, Jake. On the spray field and the solid field, because it looks like those are almost like hay production fields, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so we're taking that product off.
Yeah,
Are we, or is that
We
contracted with
basically
somebody?
have a contract where we have a farmer come in and he cuts and maintains and harvests the spray field land for hay production for cattle.
Okay, great, thank you.
Next department is our facility maintenance, a list of some of the city buildings, grounds that we maintain. There's approximately 80 acres of grounds that we have to mow. Annual budget of $302,000. We do all the minor and preventative maintenance to these facilities, and we coordinate the work of contractors that do the things that are above and beyond our skill set. Solid waste is a contracted operation. We provide oversight of that contractor. We deal with customer complaints, failure to collect, issues of that nature. We also do a lot of community events like annual Amnesty Day. We do removal of vegetative debris from the right-of-ways after storms and whatnot that are above and beyond the requirements of the contract. And our contractor picks up garbage, yard waste, recycling, bulk, and white goods. We recently bid that contract out in the last year, year and a half, at substantial savings to the customer. And we put it into a database that our contractor has, and we ensure that those complaints are resolved in a timely fashion. If not, there is a mechanism within our contract to address that with our solid waste contractor. Annual budget of $462,000. In the public works area, we're responsible for the maintenance, operation, and repair of 2 miles of unpaved and 37 miles of paved city streets. The maintenance of 16 miles of unpaved county road and 9 miles of paved county road. Some of those totals are under discussion with the county right now, and there's some debate as to what those final totals may be. Some of those roads may be city roads, some may be county roads. But the tasks associated with that is everything from road grading and traffic marking, signage, mowing, vegetation removal, things of that nature. We also maintain all the stormwater basins that have been ceded over to the city for maintenance and developments. We have 4 full-time positions in that and a contract inmate squad, but the 4 full-time employees in that also serve in the solid waste, cemetery, and mosquito control departments. Their duties are split between those. Annual budget is $687,000. As I stated before, our public works staff assistants, utility staff assistants, they assist in the cemetery process, the sale of plots. We mark, flag. We actually perform the interments. We open and close the grave site for the funeral homes. And we maintain the cemetery grounds. The annual budget at the cemetery is approximately $37,000. Mosquito control, we provide mosquito spraying services to the incorporated areas that are in our special assessment program for that. We handle any complaints that come in on mosquito issues. We train and prepare our staff and equipment and the proper techniques for the proper application of pesticides and the PPE associated with that, and ensure that we comply with all the state regulations associated with that. Annual budget of approximately $23,000.
Jamie, what do we charge our residents for mosquito control?
$1 a month special assessment.
And we charge them $1 each month. We provide mosquito control spraying services every month.
Well, while we don't spray 12 months out of the year, the program, the staff, the training, the equipment, and PPE and things associated with that, there's expenditures year-round, even though the spraying doesn't occur year-round. A few of the upcoming projects we have in the facilities department, we have some renovations scheduled to the historic Little Red Schoolhouse. We will do some of the construction projects and oversee some of the construction projects in conjunction with recreation as far as the Wild Spaces Public Places funding, some multi-purpose fields at Easton, some infrastructure to be constructed at Easton. There's a FERDAP grant that is going on for some improvements at the Martin Luther King Center that we will be assisting recreation with. We currently have a water and wastewater project, the River Grant project that's south of 26 behind Bellagio's, that will pick up some septic tanks there and get the sanitary sewer and potable water lines on a dedicated public utility easement. It will improve fire flow in that area. That's ongoing. I don't know if you've been up 2741 north of 26, but all the construction you see on the east side of the right-of-way, that is a force main reconfiguration project that we have ongoing right now. And we're almost complete with a total SCADA project for our water, wastewater, and electric. It replaced all the controls and all the SCADA components. SCADA is the supervisory control and data acquisition that actually makes our electric, water, and wastewater systems function and lets us know when they do not function correctly. Currently in the electric department, we have some projects going on. The Newberry Town Center, Patio Homes Phase 2, that's under construction. Newberry Town Center Commercial in progress. Newberry Corners Phase 2, that's under construction. Oakview Village Phase 2, the construction is now complete. We are anticipating an AMI project that will affect our water, wastewater, and electric departments. And as I said before, the SCADA project, which is almost complete. Annually, we take local option gas tax money and we apply that towards road paving or road resurfacing program. We have a project that is slated to start here in the next 30 to 60 days to resurface some roads directly south of here that lead to the Little Red Schoolhouse. The water portion of the river grant, the AMI, and the SCADA project with it. Is there any questions or anything that I might could answer for you?
You're an important man, aren't you?
We try to stay busy.
I will probably have plenty of questions going forward. Right now, you gave me a big old mouthful to chew on, and I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Travis Parker. I am the Director of Recreation. And my organizational chart consists of 14 total employees, 7 full-time and 7 part-time. The part-time employees mainly focus on the after-school program, summer camps, and assisting our recreation programming. Just some of the flyers that we put out, some of the things we do: football, soccer, cornhole, baseball, t-ball, basketball, and then most recently Westfest. And our youth sports programs, we offer baseball, softball, and t-ball. Those all run through Babe Ruth organization. And we have basketball, soccer, volleyball, and flag football run through Act 4, which is the Alachua County Task Force on Recreation. That's something that our local cities and some not municipalities, but volunteer-run organizations, we form Act 4, and we run these sports programs. Newberry is a big part of that. We take a really large role in that. We have tackle football, which we this year previously played at Boys and Girls Club. This year we're looking to move into Pop Warner and the middle school program running through Santa Fe. And we're working on that right now, trying to finalize all that, the move from Boys and Girls Club. We'll offer cheerleading through Pop Warner as well. We also have after school, summer camp, and specialty day camps, and that's run through our Easton Newberry Sports Complex. Some of our programs by the numbers. Our largest time is spring, and that's driven by baseball and softball. And then we follow that up with the fall, and those numbers are driven mostly by football. We have summer and the year-round. That consists of our summer camp and after-school programs, usually an average of 70 kids enrolled. And then winter, we have basketball. We also run programs at Diamond Sports Park, and right now we have adult programs, slow pitch softball and kickball. And then we also offer middle school baseball and softball. And we rent the facility out to I-9, and they run youth sports as well. Some quick numbers on Diamond. Most of what we do out there is adult. We have 832 total participants in adult sports per year, roughly 800, and then 480 to 500 some odd in kickball. And then our middle school baseball program is 190 kids, and fast pitch softball is around 83. Usually hovers around those numbers. For after-school and summer camp programs, we offer after-school year-round when they're in school. That's held at our Easton Newberry Sports Complex. And then when they're not in school for the summer, we offer a summer camp program. We have roughly around 50 kids in each per day, and around 70 usually that are enrolled. Sometimes they come, sometimes they don't, or maybe we offer a per day rate, so sometimes they only come a couple times. And then we also offer day camps whenever, like UF homecoming, teacher work days, winter break, whenever the kids aren't in school. We have the Martin Luther King Jr. Community Center. We offer some programs out of there, workout classes, cooking classes, art, some of our cultural things, book club, a cooking class for the youth. We have senior programming that we do at the municipal building. We have bingo on Monday, and we have elder care there during the week. And at Martin Luther King Jr. Center, we're going to be completing the FERDAP grant there, which is going to provide a restroom facility that we currently don't have, and an upgraded playground facility. Some of the parks and facilities, Jamie covered some of them, but we have the Easton Newberry Sports Complex, Jamie Durden Park, Freddie Wormack Park, the Martin Luther King Jr. Center we talked about, Diamond Sports Park, Lois Fort Park, and Champions Park. Our facility partners, these are the folks that we work with, most of them at Easton. We have Champions Park run by Michael Spina. Pro Ball Academy is also located out at Easton Newberry Sports Complex. They have baseball, softball training. Easton Archery, we share the building with them, and they handle archery, of course. Olympic training. M2 Battle Sports is the laser tag facility. The RC Park, Star Park, and the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. They host training events out there. Sometimes they'll rent our classroom. They have a training facility out back as well where they shoot archery. And then, again, I-9 Sports, and that's run through Diamond Sports Park. Some of our current and upcoming projects, we're working on the Wild Spaces Public Places right now, projection of $3 million over an 8-year period. About 2/3 of that is probably going, or will be going, to the Easton Newberry Sports Complex for infrastructure and some multi-purpose fields. But we're also going to be doing enhancements at Freddie Wormack Park, Jamie Durden Park, Lois Fort, MLK Center, and then the municipal building. And then, as Jamie touched on, the FERDAP grant, we will be upgrading restrooms. We will be adding restrooms at Martin Luther King Jr. Park, and a playground picnic area there as well. A couple things I didn't add to this. We're creating a parent recreation organization board that's going to work with all of our sports to kind of assist us and kind of give the community some involvement, some of those parents and coaches that want to be involved. And that's all I got. Any questions? Appreciate it.
Good evening, Commissioner Hermson. My name is Deborah Starr, and I'm in the Human Resources Department. Let's go ahead and start here. The organizational chart for Human Resources direction is under the Finance and Administration Department. And it's my pleasure this evening to give you a brief overview of the Human Resources Department, the functions and responsibilities. Part of the responsibilities of the Human Resources Department is to maintain employee personnel files. That's the creation and maintenance of all of the employee files. And anything related to human resources, we are responsible for maintaining those city records. Currently, we have 70 full-time employees and 16 part-time employees. Some of the functions that we administrate is the administration of our city benefits for our employees. We have health insurance, life insurance, vision insurance, dental, long-term disability insurance, and a telemed service. We currently have 2 health insurance policies that we offer our employees. They get to choose between the 2. We have a buy-up one, which is our PPO policy that the employee participates in that benefit. They pay the difference of the 2. Our life insurance policy, and our dental and our long-term disability are covered under our Lincoln products. Those benefits are participated with our staff. They can also purchase additional insurance for their dependents, which we also administrated those for the city as well. We have a telemed service this year that is a service that our staff can call into, speak to a doctor, get medical assistance, prescriptions, anything that the physician can handle over the phone, or they can give advice to the employee as to where to go. This service is very instrumental in giving our employees the ability to seek medical treatment while at work or on the weekends, after hours, not having to go to a emergency medical center, emergency room, and pay the higher cost of those expenses at those locations, which, you know, when you go to the emergency room, that's kind of expensive. And when they utilize that, there's no copay, so it saves our employee time. They don't have to leave work if they don't have to, and it helps keep the cost down for our exposure to our medical insurance, which helps keeps our rates down. We also offer our employees the opportunity to purchase additional benefits that they participate 100%. That's 100% paid for by the employee. They can purchase short-term disability, dependent coverage for any of those types of products. We also have Legal Shield, Aflac, Colonial, or some of the different vendors that we utilize for those benefits. We also administrate with the administrator for the FRS, which is Florida State Retirement. We maintain all of the record keeping for that as well. We submit the monthly contributions that the city pays, and the employee portion that is the contribution for the employee that they put in, and process the new hires through the system as well as the terminations. Our annual budget for the Human Resources Department is $105,000. We also administer all of our risk management products, and part of that is administering the city liability insurance, which that's a big responsibility to, again, keep costs down for the city, try to maintain our safety programs to, again, eliminate some of the high costs for renewal rates and everything, all those claims that you have. If you can keep those down, that keeps the liability costs down as well. We also utilize, we have our workers' comp. We report and monitor all the claims. When we have an accident, our first responsibility is to make sure that our staff person or injured worker is properly taken care of. That's our first responsibility, and then it's to report the claim and begin the process for that particular file for the employee, keeping track of all the cost and everything involved with that, and making sure our worker is taken care of. We also do post-accident drug screens, and we conduct safety meetings and try to maintain safe working conditions to, again, reduce workplace injuries. We do the quarterly reporting to the state for the Department of Revenue for employment, reemployment taxes. We also report to the Department of Treasury federal tax returns. Annually, we create the employee W-2s and 1095s in a timely manner as required by the state and federal government. Recruiting employees, the employee hiring process starts with posting the positions and then going through the applications and trying to get the best candidates, most qualified candidates for the department that's interviewing for the positions to be able to choose from. The internal, we interview the candidates and then we process the new candidate through drug screen, we do physicals, and we do background checks on all new hires. We also report all new hires to the state of Florida with some requirement. And we issue employee ID badges and time clock cards to be able for the employee to be able to clock in and clock out for their departments. We also process, again, the terminations through all the benefits. When an employee leaves, if they have health insurance, we process their COBRA paperwork. And if the particular employees do utilize COBRA, we also have to coordinate that with our benefit provider as well. And that seems to be it for me. Do you have any questions?
This will probably be the point where I need to make a joke about the bull riding on Sunday
Oh.
with staff.
I also wanted to give you this, Commissioner Hermson. It's a list of all the supplemental products that you yourself could be able to utilize as well. Thank you.
Yealer. No, thanks. I think I'm standing between you guys and tacos, so I'll try and go quickly. I'm Dallas Lee. I'm the Director of Finance and Administration. The Finance and Administration Department is over 5 major operational areas, which include the Human Resources Department, Finance and Accounting, Public Information and Relations, Customer Service, and IT. We are comprised of 7 full-time staff people. We have Deborah in HR, we have 3 people in our Customer Service and Billing Department, and then we have 2 full-time staff accountants in the finance side. In the Finance and Accounting Division, we provide financial guidance to anybody who wants it or anybody who asks, sometimes even if they don't ask. The biggest thing we do every year is we prepare the annual financial statements. It's everything we do all year long comes down to those financial statements. And then on top of that, we prepare and submit about 55 different reports every year to the state and federal government. And then once a quarter, we report to the commission on the city's financial state and where we are in terms of our budget. Speaking of budget, we also prepare, administer, and monitor the annual operating and capital budgets. The current budget's about $17.3 million. And then the finance department directly oversees the debt service budgets and the VERF budgets. The VERF is your Vehicle and Equipment Replacement Fund budget. And then we monitor and prepare budget amendments, budget adjustments. We prepare your truth and millage, also known as trim compliance reports. We also manage your treasury and your disbursements. Every penny that comes into the city or goes out of the city runs through the finance department in one way or another. In fact, last year we managed $31 million worth of transactions through our bank accounts. So all of the receivables and revenue we collect, we also pay out all of your expenses, payrolls. We manage the cash and investments in accordance with state statute. We manage investments in a variety of different investment options. We're currently on track to make about $80,000 in our investments this year. We also manage the debt for the city. Currently, the city has 3 long-term debts that total about $3.2 million. At the last commission meeting, the commission voted to pay off one of those debts. So next month, we'll have 2 long-term debts for $2.8 million. We also manage your purchasing. We ensure compliance to both the city's purchasing policies and to state statute. We issue purchase orders, and we issue competitive sealed bids. The total finance and accounting budget is $232,000. In customer service and billing, we offer excellent customer service to all customers of the city, primarily utility services. However, we do provide customer service in all aspects for anybody who needs service from the city. We do offer 24/7, 365-day-a-year customer service. We have a call center that takes calls day or night, anytime if we're not available. We also have online reporting, outage reporting options. So we offer our customers, if they would like to turn on their utilities at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, they are certainly able to do that. They can call us and we'll take care of them. We take about 11,000 calls annually. We distribute your monthly bills. We open and close accounts, provide any service to customers that they could possibly need within reason.
It's kind of broad.
As long as it was on that sheet, that very first slide the manager presented, we'll try and help them. We do accept all types of payment. We don't accept Bitcoin, but we're working on it. We work to educate customers on how they can lower their bills. We offer free leak detection kits. We also offer free in-home energy audits and online energy audits. And we try and help customers understand their bill and how they can save money. And our annual budget is $226,000 in customer service. In the administrative services side, we oversee the information technology. It's primarily provided through an outsourced contract with James Moore and Company, who I know you had contact with the other day or today. However, we do provide some on-site services as well. We maintain 6 servers, and we have an annual budget of $114,000. In public information and relations, we try to be the face of the city, at least in terms of social media and outreach events. So we attend community festivals and community events to provide a face to the city and put the city out there to interact with our residents. We maintain our emergency communications network, which is the system we use to do emergency call-outs, phone calls, emails, text messages, anything to get in touch with citizens in an emergency situation. We maintain a social media presence. As it says at the bottom there, we have a Facebook account, an Instagram account, a Twitter account, a Nextdoor account, and a YouTube account. We also have a Tumblr account, but it doesn't really get posted to. If anybody wants to follow us on Tumblr. And in administration, it's kind of a catch-all. So we administer rentals of city facilities. We administer and review different contracts. As Deborah mentioned, we provide administrative and backup support for human resources. And as fun as it is, we get to help in union and labor negotiations when those come along.
How many unions do we have, Dallas?
We have 1 union.
And where is that?
I believe it's in the fire department.
Fire department. Thank you, Dallas.
You are welcome. We love our unions. This is just some of the different some of the different graphics that we've prepared and presented. So isn't that beautiful? Okay. Our upcoming items, as the city manager mentioned, the budget is a 9-month process that was started in January. We're currently working on a website upgrade in conjunction with the Planning and Economic Development Department. We're also working on our annual audit. If we're not in budget, we're in audit, and most of the time we're in budget and audit. We will be issuing financial statements fairly soon, probably first or second meeting in May. We also, our auditor's contract is up this year, so we will be preparing an auditor RFP to either select new auditors or continue with the auditors we currently have. And now we get into the really fun stuff. This is going to be governmental accounting in 5 minutes. So in governmental accounting, you have...
Hold on.
Yeah, this is exciting stuff.
Let me get him a monster or something.
Listen, budget's fun, guys. Budget's fun. Just so you understand, when I talk to you or the auditors talk to you, in governmental accounting, we have 3 major types of fund. And And then we have different types of fund within those major types. So you have your governmental funds, proprietary funds, and your fiduciary funds. Your governmental funds are those funds that act like governments. They are primarily funded through taxes. They provide governmental services. Your proprietary funds are those funds that act like businesses. So they have to collect enough revenue through service charges to fund themselves. So those are going to be your enterprise funds, which are your electric utility, your water wastewater utility, your mosquito control utility. And that as well as your internal service funds, which act like businesses, but their primary customer is the city. So customer service and utility admin and the VERF all charge the city for their services. And then we don't have fiduciary funds, so I'm going to skip it. So your governmental funds act like governmental funds, and your proprietary funds act like business type funds. In your governmental funds, you have your general fund, which is your catch-all fund. If it doesn't go anywhere else, it goes in your general fund. Your general fund is your largest fund. It accounts for pretty much what you think of when you think of a government. It accounts for the mayor and commission, the manager, the attorney, the fire department, public works, finance and administration, parks and recreation, all that good stuff. Your special revenue funds are your funds that the revenue is special. It's for a specific cause. The commission has 3 special revenue funds: Champions Park, Diamond Sports Park, and then the Wild Spaces money is accounted for in special revenue fund. And you have your capital project funds, which come and go depending on capital projects. Currently, we have a capital project fund for the fire station, and then you have your debt service funds. All right. So the budget process. Budget process begins in January. Finance department sets the calendar and the process. There is a copy of the full calendar in your workbook. Department heads prepare and submit their requests to the finance department. We are at that step now. Department heads have until May 3rd, which is my birthday, and a great day for budgets to be due. Department heads will submit their requests to us on May 3rd. And then the city manager and I will begin reviewing the requests and meeting with department heads to understand the budget that they have submitted. We will also meet individually with the commission to gather input on what the commission would like to see in the budget, or major directives and major initiatives the commission would like. And that all happens around May. In June, the city manager prepares his budget request to the commission. And then we go into our summer workshops, which we typically schedule 4. Sometimes we have 5, sometimes we have 7. We schedule 4, being optimistic, but we never really know what the budget's going to unfold. So we have the workshops. We update the budgets with new input, with new data. We're constantly, during the budget process, getting information in from the state about expected revenues. We're getting in our property millage, ad valorem revenue expectations. We're adjusting our own projections. So it's a very fluid process. And then the commission adopts the budgets in public hearings that are held in September. They're fairly formal processes. We will prepare a script that makes sure that the mayor and the city manager, city attorney, and I all say the things that we are statutorily required to say. And then I think we typically adopt 7 to 8 items on each of those public hearings. And so that officially ends the budget process. Budget starts on October 1st, and then we start it again in January. So these next 2 slides basically have more information about what I just said, and like I said, the budget timeline is in your package, so I'm going to skip all of that unless you have questions. And then this is the budget. We do all that work. The budget's a 1-page document. You can go into more detail, but it really is just a 1-page document. Some people make fun of the way that we have to present budgets. However, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but basically, you'll have in your budget tab, I think number 4, there's a full page of it. At the top, you list all of your revenues and all of your funds. As you can see, this year, our total revenue, if you follow all the way to the left, is $23 million. And then in the bottom section, you list all of your expenses based on the category they fall into. Hopefully, if you've done everything right, your expenses are, match your revenues. Statutorily, we're not allowed to have a deficit in our budget. And that's pretty much all I got. any questions.
Pretty decided then, you better be jumping on August.
I'm gonna take it just real quick,
Alright.
the food's not here, and I'm just gonna call and make sure that it's still coming, and I'll be right back.
You know, oh, we would really like to do that. I'll fill in the time with some really funny stuff. No, I won't. I was something I thought about that I should have shared at the beginning that I didn't. And this is kind of in all seriousness. I've been over here cutting up. The most unique thing about Newberry, which makes us different than every other city of, heck, I don't know how big we want to go, under 10,000, under 15,000, we have uncommonly good, hardworking professional staff that are headed up by the group of folks that are sitting out here in front of you. For communities our size and even double and triple our size, you will not find staff that are so well qualified, so professional, so good at what they do. So, you know, a couple weeks ago, heard Mayor Marlowe talking about, he had met with a group, we met with a group of realtors, and then he got some feedback from the realtors that they were impressed with our presentation. They didn't expect it to come from a city our size, and that is common feedback, and I'm not trying to suggest that that's a Mike New thing. That's a this group of people thing, and that's that 84 FTEs that we have out there, or 74 FTEs and 84 total employees that we have that make that kind of difference. And we challenge them every day, and we challenge ourselves every day to be uncommon and elite, and it shows in our service delivery. So just thought I'd share that. Does anybody else want to share some fun factoids until Courtney gets up? Or Dallas, do you want to launch into Courtney's stuff? Well, how about just any questions? Have you run across any questions? Things you're dying to know?
I'd like to just first thank having everybody come up and the pictures in here too. That way, you know, some of the city staff I've been familiar with, you know, either through just as a citizen or other issues, but it certainly helps to be able to put faces with the names.
It's a last-minute addition at the suggestion of one Mayor Jordan Conrad, Jordan Marlowe. Just mixing them all up. Mayor Marlowe.
Yes, are you ready for me to start?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. My name is Courtney Johnson. I'm the Assistant City Attorney for the City of Newberry. Mr. Scott Walker, who is your City Attorney, is on his way. We're just, he got bad information from me, and we're moving a little bit faster than I thought. So he will be here, but for now you've got JV until the varsity gets here. So this is our organizational chart. Mr. Walker is at the top. I am at the bottom. And we and Dallas made this chart, and just let you know it was not myself. So we do have paralegals and administrative support. We also have other attorneys at our firm. So we are not employees of the city, but we have a contract with the city to provide services, and the law firm of Fulton Walker has been city attorney for the city of Newberry for over 50 years now, and Mr. Walker himself has been city attorney for the city of Newberry for, I think, 35 years. But while we primarily handle the work of the city of Newberry, we do have other attorneys on staff who have some outside expertise that we bring in from time to time. Including Dave Wagner, who's the former Alachua County attorney, and he's of counsel at our firm now, so you'll see him from time to time, and he's got a lot of great subject matter expertise that he provides to us and the city. Okay. So the city commission, your role is to set the policy of the city of Newberry. The city manager and staff carry out and enforce that policy, and our office advises on that policy. So our main role is to be the legal advisor to the city, and these are all things that you can find in your charter as our roles. We attend all meetings and advise the commission on all points of law and parliamentary procedure, prepare all ordinances and resolutions, prepare all contracts and other instruments in writing, protect and defend the city on all complaints, suits, and controversies in which the city is a party, or file any action on behalf of the city, furnish to the mayor, commission, city manager, or any department head their opinion on any question of law relating to their respective powers and duties, act as the official advisor of any city advisory board, as you know well, or department when so designated, provide training to elected officials and employees. So every year we do, the state requires that you attend 4 hours of ethics training, and so we do that, offer that in-house here for you. So it's something to look forward to. And we perform such other professional duties as may be required by the charter, ordinance, resolution of the city commission. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of our kind of foundational documents here, some of which you're probably familiar with because of your time on the plan board. But we do have rules of procedure. They're in your Newberry 101, I don't know if we're calling it a handbook, workbook, or what we're calling that. But anyway, that's that's in there, and that's how we run our city meetings. You don't have to memorize it. You've got a city manager, you've got lots of staff, you've got an attorney to advise you, but it's good to kind of be familiar with what's in there. The city's charter is our foundational document. It's what makes the city of Newberry, Newberry, and a good analogy is that's kind of like our constitution. And so what happens in the charter is law in Newberry, and it's hard to change our charter, and if there's any conflict between our charter and our resolutions, our ordinances, our charter prevails. Our code of ordinances is kind of the legislation of the city. When the commission acts by ordinance, that goes in our code of ordinances. And we've got big code of ordinances books that Judy and Amy update and make sure are up to date, but we also have a service through MuniCode, where all of that is available online. We also have a land development code, which I know you're familiar with from your time on Plan Board, and that in the big books that you'll get from Judy and Amy, the land development code is in there, and that's also on our municipal code that gets updated pretty regularly. Do you have any questions on any of that? Okay. So when we are in a commission meeting, this is kind of the order in which we do things. An agenda item is introduced either by the city manager, whatever department that item is from. You'll get a staff presentation. The commission has discussion, asks questions of staff. Someone makes a motion. We then have debate on the motion, public comment after that, and then the commission votes.
Back there.
What?
Thing that's receiving the signal is.
Oh, is not here? Okay. It's not just like a remote? All right. Okay, so we talked earlier about what our duties are as the legal team, but our charter also has powers and duties for the commission. So you guys have the power to pass ordinances, adopt resolutions, approve or disapprove of the appointment of officers and boards. And basically all powers of the city, except as otherwise provided in the charter or by the Constitution of the state of Florida. So the charter gives some things to your manager, some things to your city clerk, some things to your city attorneys, kind of your charter officers, and everything else is you. It is kind of cool. It's a pretty awesome responsibility. You're the boss. You as a body are the boss.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, you're the only one here tonight, so tonight you're the boss. Enjoy. So the commission can act by proclamation, and we'll often see that dedicating a month to a certain cause, charity. You can act by resolution, and resolutions are often less formal. We might be adopting certain policy of the city through resolution, something that's more short-term. And ordinances are kind of the laws of the city. Those are the big items that you guys undertake. And there's a more formalized process as we move to the right there. So for proclamations, they're mostly ceremonial. We often do vote on them, but we don't actually need to vote on proclamations. Resolutions only require one meeting, one reading. Ordinances involve 2 votes of the city commission and have to be advertised. I'm sure this will not be an issue for you, but just so you know, if a commissioner or the mayor is absent from 4 consecutive regular meetings of the city commission, unless they are excused by the city commission, forfeit your office. Conviction of a felony while in office. We currently do not have any pending litigation, and that is my presentation. So if you have any questions, and next week we're going to come back, and the city clerk and myself are going to give you a crash course on public records, sunshine, and ethics. So I'm happy to answer any questions tonight on that, but we'll cover that with you next week.
Yeah, I believe that's the hour before the city commission meeting.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, is this working, or are you saying it's not working? Amy's going to.
That works. Just, it works better if it points backwards because the receiver's back there. We ought to move the receiver up to the front of the room too. So it
Okay,
seems normal.
so this one, okay. Right. Yes, okay, thank you. Hey, I'm Judy Rice. I am your city clerk, and everybody knows this is my favorite place to be, in front of this microphone. Not really, but I'm happy to be here tonight, and welcome aboard. I am the city clerk, and our office consists of 2 employees, myself and my staff assistant, Amari Jones. She's a full-time student and a part-time employee here, and an outstanding employee at that. I am appointed by and serve at the direction and pleasure of the City Commission. Some of the powers and duties, well, I'll go over the budget first. The city clerk's budget is a little over $141,000, and I budget for the elections, public records, and for updating our ordinances through MuniCode and our public records program for our public record management. I am an executive officer of the city, a certified municipal clerk. I earned the designation as certified municipal clerk through the John Scott Daly Institute of Government, Florida State University in 2008. And I'm currently working on the master municipal clerk designation. I attend, record, and certify proceedings of all meetings of the City Commission. I administer all oaths as required by the law of the ordinances of the city. I am the custodian of the official seal of the city, which means I attest and I use the seal. I am the Chief Administrative Officer of the Truth and Millage. Our Finance Director actually has a much significant part in that in our trim process, but what I do is I certify that the data that's been entered into electronically is correct, and that all applicable forms to the Department of Revenue Property Tax Oversight Program have been submitted on time and are correct. I attest and record all ordinances, resolutions, proclamations, contracts, agreements, leases, etc. I am the Property Lien Search Coordinator. I work with 3 other departments. I work with, turn my page here, the Utilities Department, Building Department, and the Code Enforcement Department. Execute all bonds, validate all business tax receipts, check for correctness, and sign. Perform all duties as may be assigned by the City Commission, and these duties are listed in our city charter, section 42, also on our city's website page. I am the official agency's public records custodian, although all of us, after our crash course next week, we're all custodians of records. But it is my duty to make sure that we continue to stay in compliance with the Florida statutes. I am responsible for the maintenance, storage, retention, and disposal of public records, protect and preserve records of historical value, archives, and I am responsible for the training and compliance of Florida Statutes, Chapter 119. Our public records policy is resolution number 44-14, and if you don't have a copy of that, I will certainly provide it for you. I am also a certified public records management, again, through the John Scott Daly Institute of Government at the University of Central Florida, and was given that designation in 2016. Amy DeLucio is an employee under the city manager's supervision, but she is also our liaison officer. She was that prior to under the former city clerk's era, and I fund her training for public records, and she should obtain her Florida Certified Records Management designation this year in May. I am also the, let's go ahead, supervisor of municipal elections. I'm the official in charge of all administration duties pertaining to elections. I maintain the registration records of city electors as provided in the general law of the state. I am the qualifying officer for the candidates, and I'm responsible for the election registration. I ensure compliance with federal and state laws. That also includes mandatory training for poll workers and any employees that assist me, such as Amy and Amari. I am the vote by mail coordinator. I am a member of the Board of Canvassers along with our mayor and the chair pro tem. In addition, I served as a member of the 2016-2017 Florida League of Cities Energy, Environment, and Natural Resources Legislative Policy Committee and the 2017-2018 Florida League of Cities Utilities, Natural Resources, and Public Works Legislative Policy Committee. I'm trying to think of, I think that's it. Do you have any questions? That's not everything that I do, and I invite you to come and visit me, and I can show you some of the other duties that I have. Do you have any questions?
No, ma'am, but I'll certainly come by and have a visit with you to find out what else you're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jude.
We went on food still? I'd like to introduce our city attorney, Scott Walker.
If you don't mind, if I could just say something real
Absolutely.
quick. And tell me, I was gonna ask Courtney if she covered how our contract works at all, and how that, just the logistics of it, real quick. Okay. I wanted to let you know how our situation works, because attorneys can work in a variety of methods. And the beauty of our relationship is that my partner, Allison Foles, was the city attorney for 16 years before me. And I started in '86, so that puts us right at, I think this year is our 50th consecutive year being your city attorney. So we have a lot of institutional knowledge about how the situation here works. And as I said in your swearing in, my job is to keep you out of trouble, keep the city out of trouble. And sometimes trouble just comes knocking on your door, and there's nothing you can do about that, and so we have to deal with that. Now, we've had a variety of ways that our contract has worked, and I think the way that it works right now is probably the best in my tenure, which is that we have a set fee that we charge the city. It's under a retainer-based contract. So you pay my firm, the city pays my firm, no matter if we put in 10 hours or we put in 100 hours in a month. It's the same amount, which means that it doesn't cost you any more money to call our office. So if you have a legal question, or Mike has a legal, I do things a little informally. You know, I call you Matt, please call me Scott. A lot of times when we're up here and it's a formal meeting, they'll say Attorney Walker, and I'll say Commissioner Hersom, but it's really, you know, when you call our office, it's Scott. And all of the commissioners, and we need to update and make sure the new commissioners are on the sheet up front, but our receptionist knows when the mayor calls or Commissioner Hersom calls. You know, they're supposed to find me if you call for me, and if you can't get me, call Courtney. And if you strike out there, my partner's usually around, and if you can't get to somebody, talk to Lisa, who's my legal assistant and does all the scheduling, and then she will get you on the calendar. It'll be, you know, might be 5:30 that night, or it might be 6 if I'm depositions or I'm doing other things. I do a lot of trial work, so I stay very, very busy. But the whole idea is that you have accessibility to our office, and that's what the retainer-based contract does. Is it gives you accessibility to myself and our legal staff. We have 8 lawyers right now. Actually, we're at 9 because we just added on another partner in the last few weeks. But we have 9 lawyers who all have very different levels of competence in different areas. So if I can't answer the question, I have various resources within the office to draw on. And if we can't answer it there, then there's a lot of other resources at our disposal to try to get you an answer. But the one thing that I would commend to you is don't sit and stew on something. Don't think that you can't call the city attorney's office or that I'm not allowed to. You know, that's not the case at all. We want to be accessible to you, and our contract is set up so that we have accessibility. We're here before the meeting, after the meeting, if you have a question, or if you want to do it, come into the office, call us, and that's where the email. You should have my cell phone. You should have my cell phone. You have accessibility direct line into the office as well. So that's how it works. And I just wanted to relate that to you, Matt, that is how our system works, so that you know the logistics of how the city attorney's function works for you and the city.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate that.
Any questions you have, we're happy to answer and look forward to very much long additional tenure that we've got with you.
Thanks, Scott.
You bet.
And Matt, just to kind of maybe carry on the Scott's dovetails, there's a couple people, we are informal here in the city, a couple folks that you tend to get most information from me just because I'm engaged in operations, and so the flow of information probably from an intensity perspective will come from my office. And so just from experience, I've found that there is a hesitation maybe from an elected official to reach out to the city attorney, not so much the city clerk, because most people get elected by having a great relationship with Judy. You can't make it through the election process without having have already developed that relationship with Judy. But often people say, you know, what do you think? Should I call Scott? And I'm like, absolutely, you should call Scott. You just heard him say it. The other folks that fit in that, so the city attorney's office develop a great relationship with them. We really have a strong team, and so feel free to do that. The other entity that you have that relationship with that I think sometimes confuses elected, that's the first time since I've been working here that we had a power blip. Well, it came back on, so that's a good thing. That was, have you heard there are squirrels in Newberry?
Yeah,
we have
just
a
a few,
squirrel
yeah.
problem in Newberry. Are we all fired back up here? But the other entity that is probably the most confusing for the commission to recognize is our auditor. Our auditor is contracted by the city, and they interface with Dallas and with I quite a bit. They are working directly for the commission, and the commission should have no hesitations about communicating directly with the auditor. The whole purpose of the audit, I mean, we're transparent and we fully on board with the auditor, but is to be a system of checks and balances so that the citizens of Newberry and our elected officials have confidence that the staff is performing work in a manner that is set up by our procedures and policies. So, you know, when we get into audit season and maybe Barbara gives you a call, she is purposely trying to establish that relationship and get you to help you to understand that that auditor does report directly to the commission. They just happen to work with us quite a bit. So, Brian Thomas, which you know well, and we're a lot of slides out of the way. Brian is the department head for planning and economic development, and Brian is unable to be here. His father passed away yesterday evening, and so he's been in Crystal River taking care of making arrangements, and sends his regrets. And I'm going to do my best to kind of pitch it for Brian real well, and I was going to be relieved that you know this stuff so well, but it may be more pressure that you know it better than I do, and then I'll say the wrong thing, and you'll say, oh my gosh, what do we got going on here? So, but I'll jump into there. In addition to planning and economic development, Brian oversees building, official, and code enforcement. So all those areas are kind of interrelated. It makes good sense, and Brian does a great job with it. So any of those issues, Brian is your point of contact. Planning, which you know well, their job is to ensure that development within the city complies with our comprehensive plan, which is the highest level of planning document that we have in the city. It's mandated by Florida state statute that we have that. And you'll hear people in the community be frustrated by these comp plans and our rules and regulations. And I like to remind them that oftentimes city staff are the enablers of development in a community. The state legislature, state law says you have to have comp plans and land development regulations. We developed them and we've administrated them at your direction. If staff weren't there interpreting them and helping enable development, then people could answer directly to the state, and I think that would be a more cumbersome process altogether. So we also maintain land use and zoning maps. We review applications of all sorts that have to do with new development. Our planning department also handles grant preparation and administration, and we get after grants pretty intensively around here. So we have a principal planner, her name is Wendy Kinzer, who is also our principal grant manager. So we get a lot of work out of Wendy. She's very successful for us in both arenas. The planning and zoning staff also work with the HARB and the Economic Development Advisory boards and committees. And 911 addresses. Don't want to leave that out. So these are the types of applications. You're very well versed with those for all sorts of developments, but everything from special exceptions to site plans to annexations. Legal issues and planning, and then we're going to talk about quasi-judicial proceedings, which I think is more of a call for the city attorney or the assistant city attorney than the pinch hit planning director.
Well, I think you're pretty well versed in this now, and before we get started on this, I'll tell you that your city manager, staff, planning staff, and legal staff has been working to revise our quasi-judicial procedure, and so I think you can anticipate having that probably late spring, early summer to look at, but the basic rules will remain the same. So, as you know, local government land use decisions are deemed quasi-judicial when the action involves application of our policy instead of setting our policy. So we kind of talked about earlier, you as a commission are primarily a legislative body, and that's mostly what you do, but sometimes you do have these policy application. So most often you see them in planning and zoning issues like rezoning, variances, things like that. So it's analogous to a judicial hearing, but with fewer formalities. So anyone presenting an application to the city must be able to present evidence, cross-examine witness, and be informed of all facts upon which the board acts, because the board has to make all their decisions based on the competent, substantial evidence that is presented to them. Okay. So the applicant has the initial burden of proof in the quasi-judicial procedure to show to the commission that they've met all the necessary components, whether that's per Florida statute or that's something that's in our code of ordinances or in our land development code. Once they've done that, once they've met that initial burden, then the burden shifts to the board if you're going to deny to justify that denial. So as I said before, it must be competent, substantial evidence. Substantial evidence is evidence that will establish a substantial basis of fact from which the fact at issue can reasonably be inferred. Basically, such relevant evidence as a reasonable mind would accept as adequate to support that conclusion. Competent evidence is evidence relied upon to sustain the ultimate finding. The finding should be sufficiently relevant and material that a reasonable mind would accept as adequate to support the conclusion. Ex parte communication. As you're well aware in planning and zoning, we always ask you before applications if you've had any ex parte communications. So the general advice is that they should be avoided where possible. Obviously, we understand that especially in a tight-knit community like Newberry, where people are interested, you're going to have a lot of people coming up to you and asking you questions. And in your legislative capacity, that's certainly encouraged, and we love that about our citizens. So sometimes it's hard for board members as well, obviously, as the citizenry at large, to understand the difference. Well, why can I come to you on sidewalk discussions, but I can't come talk to you about something that's more important to me, which is my neighbor's trying to build a pool in the backyard and it's too close to mine. So our general advice, like I said, is to avoid such contact where you can. But we do have resolutions that we've passed here in Newberry that allow for it as long as you disclose it on the record. And so it's got to be in public at either the meeting in which you're making the decision or a meeting prior to that. And so if you have had such contact and you haven't disclosed it, then the presumption is that that was prejudicial and that you did not make your decision based on the competent substantial evidence that occurred at the hearing, but you made your decision based on outside information that was not available to the entire commission, and the applicant didn't know, and so they weren't able to rebut that. They weren't able to provide you evidence to the contrary. So, if that happens, then the applicant or the aggrieved party would be entitled to a new hearing. So another reason why we like to try to avoid it, or at least make sure that you've properly disclosed so that we don't have to redo anything. So like I said before, the disclosure must be made either before or during the meeting in which the vote is taken. And then it allows the applicant to, like I said, provide evidence to the contrary of what you've been told. So that's why we'll ask you, if you say that you have had ex parte, we ask who you've had that with and what the substance of that conversation was. So an essential component of due process is that you are an impartial decision maker when you're in these quasi-judicial procedures. And so that's why the communication is presumed prejudicial unless you've properly disclosed it. And that is quasi-judicial, and like I said, we have a procedure which you always read before our meetings, but we've been working on updating that, and so we'll bring that back to you. But do you have any questions?
Certainly on planning and zoning, yeah, I had a fair amount of experience with that. How much more or less does that occur at the city commission level than at the planning and zoning level?
Really, I would say that almost 100% of quasi-judicial hearings that come before the commission came to the planning board first.
Okay.
So it'll be a similar amount. There are some things that just go to planning and zoning, but most of the items for planning and zoning are recommendations to the commission, and so it would be a similar number that the commission
Okay.
has.
Sure. Okay.
All right, so economic development, which is also Brian's forte, I'll just run through here. Under economic development, we attempt to market Newberry to new business prospects. We've really excelled in the residential arena. People really want to live in Newberry. We've been working hard to get businesses to really want to start their business here in Newberry, and it's to be very purposeful about it. We know that certain businesses are just going to follow rooftops, and that's just, there's no work involved in that. That's just the way it is. But we put a tremendous amount of energy into economic development purposefully, because we're not just complacent to let whatever's going to follow rooftops happen. We'd rather get out front of it and try to bring the right kind of businesses in that'll really augment our community and make our community better. You know, kind of one of the benchmark questions that we ask is, you know, we want everything that happens in Newberry to result in Newberry being a little bit better place than before it happened. So we respond to a bunch of economic development prospect inquiries. We responded to one yesterday that if it were to come true would make Dallas super happy, would make us all super happy. And so there's some likelihood that it would. Most of them come in with key code words, Project Zebra, and we don't, because of public records requirements, we don't, in the prospect stage, there may not be a lot of buzz about it. I hope that doesn't come as an affront to you, but when prospects are looking at it, they like to keep it as quiet as possible. We aren't allowed to shoot a bunch of records around and then keep it confidential, so consequently we just don't shoot a lot of records around. The people that are looking at us for prospects, they know the kind of public records requirements that we have, and so they're very coy. They give us very limited information. We respond and we wait until we get something in black and white, and then we celebrate it. So we, in addition, probably more important than bringing new businesses to Newberry, are retaining existing businesses and helping them expand. There's some rule about it's 5 times easier to keep an existing business and help it grow than it is to bring a new one in. So we're really foolish if we let folks get away with, at least without a fight. We create marketing materials every year. We have a modest budget for economic development, probably in the $25,000 to $40,000 range annually. Usually it's augmented by some sort of grant that Wendy secures us from the state of Florida in some capacity. So we have an ongoing project there where we're trying to develop a broader portfolio of information that makes Newberry look more attractive. So we go for grant funding. It's a big leader for a community. I mean, for someone that wants to come into to a community, they may recognize that they need $2 million worth of public infrastructure to make the project happen. So they'll bring jobs to the table. We'll go help them get a grant because the private sector typically can't get the grant. So as a public entity, we can go get the grants or partner with them to get grants. There's also a variety of other types of grants, QTI grants, which are training grants. If you'll come, we'll get funding so that you can train your staff to get out the gate so that you start with a well-trained workforce. So there's just some photos of different things that we participated in the last year or so. We've been in Tallahassee marketing for economic development. We've met with a lot of the local delegates sharing our Ag Tech Park. I look forward to sharing that with you in detail and getting your insights. We think that you're going to have a lot of professional insights that might help us with our Ag Tech Innovation Park. Moving into building department, we really have a happening building department. It has been reported that Newberry is the 3rd fastest growing community in the state of Florida. You may have heard that. We're repeating it, but I'm not sure the source is 100% authentic, so we won't write it anywhere, but we may repeat it. But we're so busy with building departments that with building applications that we've staffed up in the last year. One of our chronic criticisms were that we were inadequately staffed. We had too slow of turnaround, so we went out and doubled our workforce, our building department workforce. We heard citizens talking, and we said, okay, we're going to double the workforce. Went from 1 building inspector to 2. But we also staff that department 50 hours a week. City Hall is open. Most city offices are open 40 hours a week. The building department is open 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, so that they're accessible to the public that utilizes. Most people in the building industry work 5 and 6 days a week. They weren't particularly understanding of why is there no one there on a Friday. So we heard that and we addressed it. So these are kind of what our building department is charged with. I guess one of the great unknowns, and you'll hear it all the time, is lack of flexibility. Back in the day when I was first getting in government, the building code for a local community was adopted by this board. It was usually some standard code, Southern Building Code or the Florida Building Code, and then what you did was you went through that and said, these are all the things we don't like, and you changed them so that you had a local building code, and everyone built to that, and we've been preempted. It is the Florida Building Code. There are no exceptions. There are no changes. So when folks are complaining that I don't like this particular code requirement that Marshall's enforcing, it's the Florida Building Code, and the only way to change that is to go to the Florida legislature and say, we don't like that. Often, Marshall agrees with them, but Marshall's license says that he will enforce the building code that's in place, not that he will enforce the building code that he thinks is reasonable. So we also do new building occupancy. Anytime a business moves out of a building downtown and they change the use, we have the fire inspector in there, the Ben's in there with Marshall. They're looking at it to make sure it is to code before the new business opens up. Codes enforcement is an area that's starting to get a lot of focus. 4 years ago, the department was essentially, historically, it was a part-time gig by the fire chief. And then we got a new fire chief who felt like that wasn't his forte, and we just kind of went without any codes enforcement for a while. And then we kind of got back in the codes enforcement business, but we didn't have a certified code enforcement person, and we still really struggled. And about 3 months ago, we got a contract code enforcement officer that is super well qualified, has been involved in the business, has served at every capacity in the state boards, has a great temperament for it. He is there to help residents come into compliance with code. He is not out there looking for trouble, but he is very gifted at helping people bring their properties into compliance. And he's been a huge asset to the city and made tons of headway just in the last 30 to 60 days. I would say that we've gone so long without active code enforcement that that the community, it may catch them a little off guard, and as a result of that, as an elected official, you may hear some rumblings. But rest assured, it's been a pretty well vetted process, and if they have any questions, they feel free to bring them to staff. We'd be happy to sit down and work with people to make sure that we're not being unbearable in our quest to get them into compliance with the code. So there's the whole gamut of things that we're looking at that our codes enforcement folks would be looking at. And then we are kind of getting close to the end. The Institute for Elected Officials, you'll hear us talking about EMO quite a bit, throwing that around. It stands for Institute for Elected Officials. At least at the staff level, the city attorney and the assistant city attorney may know, but the rest of us can never remember what the acronym is for. So I'm going to say it a lot, Institute for Elected Municipal Officials, so that hopefully we'll remember it. But these guys provide training for elected officials. They have an entry level that we, it is suggested, staff will strongly suggest it, that you attend. We always budget so that our elected officials can attend EMO training. It's 2 days for basic training, and then advanced training is another 2 days. You get a certificate, and we'll march you up here, and we'll talk about you publicly as to how proud we are of you for going through it. Put you up in a nice hotel while we go through the training. And we have an upcoming session. There's one in June. It's in Jupiter. These are weekends. Typically, it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So there's one in June and there's one in October. If you'd like to attend either of those, you can let me know. You can let Amy know. You can let Judy know. You can let Dallas know. We would get you signed up. It is offered by the Florida League of Cities. And as the statement says, as I'm reading the statement, it's specifically for new commissioners. Those are the overview of topics that they're going to cover in there. It's kind of like City Government 101, a little broader than City of Newberry. But they're very good at intergovernmental relations and the open government laws. So more information on public records and on communication and all those sorts of things. You'll also get to interact with a lot of other elected officials. Everybody that's ever gone comes back and talks about the benefit of just networking. Yeah. And then we have advanced EMO training as well.
I've looked into that. The June one actually is full, has a waiting list right now. So
that happened last year, and if you really wanted to go, we'd apply as much pressure as humanly possible to say you can't leave Newberry out on this thing. And we were successful in that endeavor last year. We leaned on them hard, and they said, okay, we'll open up a new seat.
Okay. Yeah, I'd certainly rather do it sooner rather than later.
Okay, well, we're going to, beginning tomorrow, we're going to start leaning on those folks that do the June training. And that concludes our presentation. All 97 slides in record speed. Last year it took us a long time to go through 101 slides, and we thought it was cute that it was Newberry 101, and we had a slide for every one of those, but we've managed to cut back a whopping 4 slides this year, get you down to 97, and I think we got out of here in about 2 hours, or we can finish in 2 hours.
But dinner is served in 3.
Awesome. And informal Q&A time. Ask any questions you want and enjoy the meal.
All right.
Thank you so much.